In the vast cosmos where species judge worth by genetic perfection and social status, what happens when the most advanced civilizations, defective, daughter meets a simple human father who sees value in broken things? Sometimes the greatest strength isn't found in those who never fall, but in those who help others rise again. When cast out from the prestigious ethereal collective for her impure, hybrid genetics, crash lands on a backwater planet called Earth, she expects to find primitive savages. Instead, she discovers a widowed engineer raising two young daughters alone, who offers her something her own. The escape pod screamed through Earth's atmosphere like a dying star, its hull glowing white-hot as it tore through the night sky above the Pacific Northwest. Inside, gripped the emergency restraints with hands that trembled not from fear of death, but from the crushing weight of rejection that had driven her to this desperate flight. Her violet-tinged skin bore the telltale marks of her mixed heritage, the luminescent patterns that marked her as ethereal but dimmed and incomplete, branded her as something less than pure in the eyes of her people. The collective's final words echoed in her mind. "You are no daughter of ours. Find your place among the lesser beings where you belong." The pod's automated systems shrieked warnings in 17 languages as it careened toward the forest-covered mountains. Impact was inevitable. Closed her eyes, expecting to join her human father in whatever afterlife awaited half-breeds and outcasts. 23 miles away, was debugging the smart home system he'd installed in his modest cabin when every piece of electronic equipment in the house went haywire. Coffee maker, microwave, tablet computers, even his daughter's gaming console. Everything sparked and flickered as an enormous electromagnetic pulse washed over the mountain's side. "Dad, what's happening?" 8-year-old Emma poked her head out of her bedroom, her dark hair tousled from sleep. Her younger sister, Lily, barely 6, clung to a stuffed dragon as she peered around the corner. "Just a power surge, sweetheart, probably lightning." Pulled on his jacket, his engineer's mind already calculating the damage to their electronics. "Stay inside with Lily. I'll check the generator." But as he stepped onto the porch, he saw it. A streak of fire painting the sky, moving too fast and too low to be a meteor. The object crashed somewhere in the dense forest that surrounded their home, the impact shaking the ground beneath his feet. had been many things in his 34 years. MIT graduate, aerospace engineer, devoted husband. And since Sarah's death 3 years ago, single father doing his best to raise two daughters on his own. But he'd never been the type to ignore someone in trouble. Hey, girls, get your coats. We're going for a walk. It's past bedtime, Emma protested, though she was already reaching for her jacket. Sometimes helping people is more important than bedtime rules. The hike through the forest took longer than expected. The girls moved slowly in the darkness, even with flashlights, and found himself carrying Lily for the last half-mile. The crash site wasn't hard to find. A trail of broken trees led to a clearing where something that definitely wasn't built on Earth had gouged a 40-foot trench in the forest floor. The escape pod was roughly spherical, made from what looked like brushed silver that seemed to shimmer and shift in the flashlight beams. Steam rose from its surface as it cooled, and could hear a faint humming that made his teeth ache. "Is it a spaceship, Daddy?" Lily whispered. Before could answer, the pod's surface rippled like liquid metal, and a section dilated open with a sound like singing crystal. A figure stumbled out and collapsed to her knees in the dirt. Had seen enough science fiction movies to know what an alien was supposed to look like. Either bug-eyed monsters or beautiful humanoids. Was definitely the latter, but with an otherworldly quality that made it clear she was anything but human. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, with an elegant build that spoke of a lighter gravity world. Her skin had a pale lavender tint that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight, and intricate patterns like circuit traces ran along her arms and the sides of her face. Her hair was white as snow, but moved like it was underwater, and when she looked up at them, her eyes were the deep purple of a twilight sky. She was also clearly injured. Dark fluid that might have been blood seeped from cuts on her arms and legs, and she moved like someone fighting a concussion. "Stay back, girls," handed the flashlight to Emma and approached slowly, hands visible. "Are you hurt?" His head snapped up at the sound of his voice. For a moment, confusion flickered across her features. She'd expected the local inhabitants to be primitive, barely evolved beyond stone, tools, and fire. The human facing her wore clothing that showed clear technological sophistication, and his posture was protective rather than aggressive. She tried to speak, but what came out was a stream of musical syllables that sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Shook his head apologetically. I don't understand. Do you speak English? Reached up to touch a device behind her ear. And when she spoke again, her words carried a slight melodic accent but were clearly understandable. You are not afraid of me. He glanced back at his daughters. Emma was watching with wide-eyed fascination, while Lily had crept closer despite his warning, her stuffed dragon clutched tight. Should I be? He kept his voice calm and gentle, the same tone he used when the girls had nightmares. You're hurt. Do you need help? The simple kindness in his words hit like a physical blow. After a lifetime of being told she was deficient, dangerous, a contamination of pure ethereal genetics, this primitive human was offering aid to a complete stranger. Her throat tightened with an emotion she'd been taught was weakness. Yes, my pod's life support is failing. I need. She struggled to find words in this new language. I need shelter, medical attention, but I have nothing to offer in return. Everyone needs help sometimes. Extended his hand. These are my daughters, Emma and Lily. Stared at the offered hand as if it were a foreign concept. In ethereal society, touching between non-family members was rare, almost forbidden. But something about this human's open expression made her reach out and grasp his fingers. His hand was warm, calloused from honest work and steady. When she tried to stand, he supported her weight without complaint, even though she was clearly heavier than her frame suggested. Well, what's your name? Emma asked, having inherited her father's curiosity and complete lack of fear when it came to new experiences. It means star fallen in my language. That's pretty. Are you really from space? Emma warned gently. It's all right. Managed a smile, the first genuine one in longer than she could remember. Yes, little one, I come from very far away. Cool, can you fly? Not without a ship. Can you shoot lasers from your eyes? Only when I'm very angry. Lily giggled at that, and the sound seemed to surprise. She looked down at the small human child with something approaching wonder. We should get her back to the house, said. She needs medical attention and it's cold out here. The walk back took twice as long with leaning heavily on shoulder. She tried to mask her injuries, but her species' natural grace couldn't hide the obvious pain from each step. By the time they reached the cabin, she was barely conscious. Settled her on the couch while the girls watched from the kitchen doorway. Her unusual physiology made it difficult to assess her injuries properly, but he could see that several of the cuts were deeper than they'd initially appeared. The girls go get the first aid kit from the bathroom and bring down some blankets. As Emma and Lily raced upstairs, knelt beside the couch. I'm going to need to clean these wounds. It might hurt. Nodded weakly. I am accustomed to pain. Something in the way she said it made pause. There was a depth of hurt in her voice that went beyond physical injury, the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from years of being told you weren't good enough. Well, you're safe now, he said simply, and began cleaning the cuts on her arms. The antiseptic stung, but barely flinched. What surprised her was the gentleness of his touch, the way he worked efficiently but carefully, as if her comfort mattered to him. When was the last time anyone had touched her with kindness rather than clinical detachment or disgust? Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Lee looked up from his work. Why wouldn't I? I am not of your species. You know nothing about me. I could be dangerous. Are you dangerous? I considered the question seriously. I have been trained in combat. I could harm you if I chose to. But you won't. How can you be certain? Finished bandaging a particularly deep cut and sat back on his heels. Because dangerous people don't ask if they're dangerous. And because anyone who crash lands in the middle of nowhere and still says, please, and thank you was raised right, regardless of what planet they're from. They felt tears gathering in her eyes, a human expression she'd inherited from her father's genetics, one that marked her as contaminated in ethereal society. You do not understand. My own people cast me out. I am flawed, impure, a genetic aberration. Your people are idiots. The blunt statement, delivered with such matter-of-fact certainty, shocked a laugh out of her. You cannot possibly know that. I know that anyone who would throw away someone like you isn't worth the air they breathe. Began working on the cuts on her legs, his touch remaining professional but gentle. I also know that my daughters have taken a liking to you, and they're excellent judges of character. As if summoned by his words, Emma appeared with the first aid kit while Lily dragged a pile of blankets down the stairs. They approached cautiously but without fear. Are you going to stay with us? Lily asked, settling cross-legged on the floor beside the couch. I do not know where else I would go, admitted. You can have my room, Emma offered immediately. I can share with Lily. That's very kind, but I would not wish to inconvenience you. It's not an inconvenience, said, finishing with her injuries and helping her sit up properly. It's what families do for each other. But I am not your family. Details. He tucked one of the blankets around her shoulders. Are you hungry? I can make soup. I pulled the blanket, absorbing not just its warmth, but the casual kindness of the gesture. I should not impose. Mom always said that food tastes better when you share it with people, Lily said solemnly. And we don't have anybody to share with anymore except each other. The simple truth of it, that this small family was as lonely as she was, broke through the last of his defenses. For the first time since her exile, she felt something that might have been hope. Then yes, she said quietly, I would like that very much. As bustled about the kitchen, heating soup and making tea, the girls peppered with questions about space and aliens, and whether she'd ever met any robots. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and she found herself laughing more in one evening than she had in the past year. When they finally settled around the small dining table, sharing a simple meal of tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, experienced something she'd never had before. A sense of belonging that had nothing to do with genetics or social standing, and everything to do with acceptance. Outside, snow began to fall, covering her crashed escape pod and erasing the evidence of her violent arrival. Inside the warm cabin, a new kind of family was being born, one that would soon prove that love and loyalty weren't limited by species or biology. But for now was content to listen to Emma explain the finer points of Earth cartoons while Lily fell asleep against her shoulder. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged. He woke to the smell of something called bacon and the sound of children's laughter drifting up from the kitchen below. For a moment, Disorientation clouded her thoughts. The bed was too soft, the light streaming through the windows too warm and golden. Then memory returned. The escape pod, the crash, the human family that had taken her in without question. She sat up carefully, testing her injuries. The cuts had healed remarkably well overnight, aided by her hybrid physiology, though her ribs still ached from the impact. Someone, she assumed, had left clean clothes folded on the dresser, simple jeans and a sweater that would help her blend in among humans. The face that looked back at her from the mirror was still distinctly alien. Her skin had deepened to a more noticeable lavender hue, and the bioluminescent patterns along her arms pulsed faintly with her heartbeat. A lifetime of being told these markings made her impure had trained her to see them as flaws. But in this soft morning light, they almost looked beautiful. Almost. Downstairs, she found at the stove, expertly flipping pancakes, while Emma and Lily sat at the kitchen table, arguing good-naturedly about whether aliens preferred syrup or honey on their breakfast. Definitely honey, said from the doorway, smiling as both girls turned to beam at her. On my, we have something similar made from the nectar of crystalline flowers. See, I told you, Lily bounced in her chair. Dad likes honey. I turned, spatula in hand, and was struck again by the warmth in his dark eyes. How are you feeling? Better. Much, thank you. Your medical supplies are quite effective. A basic first aid, nothing fancy. He gestured to an empty chair. Coffee, it's a human stimulant, but fairly mild. I would like that. As poured coffee and plated pancakes, found herself studying this strange family that had welcomed her so easily. The kitchen was lived in and comfortable, with children's artwork stuck to the refrigerator and coffee rings on the counter that spoke of hurried mornings and busy lives. Photos lined the windowsill, with the girls at various ages, and several that included a woman with kind eyes and Emma's stubborn chin. That's Mom, Lily said, noticing her gaze. She died when I was 3. I am sorry for your loss. Dad says she's watching over us from heaven, Emma added, and that she would want us to help people who need it. They set a plate in front of their fingers, brushing briefly as he handed her a fork. Sarah always said our house was too quiet with just one family in it. She would have loved having you here. The casual certainty in his voice made's throat tight. You speak of me as if I will be staying. Aren't you? I do not know. I have nowhere else to go, but I cannot impose on your kindness indefinitely. It's not imposing if we want you here. Emma spoke with the straightforward honesty of childhood. Besides, Dad needs help. He burns dinner like twice a week. I do not burn dinner twice a week, protested. Once, maybe once and a half. And he can't braid hair at all, Lily added. Mine always comes out lopsided. Looked at the little girl's cheerfully messy ponytail and felt something shift in her chest. I could teach him. Hair weaving is a traditional skill among my people. Really, would you? If your father agrees. We met her eyes across the table. I'd appreciate that. There's a lot I'm still figuring out about raising daughters. You seem to be managing well. Some days better than others. They ate breakfast in comfortable companionship. The girls chattering about school and friends while explained his work as a freelance engineering consultant. He designed renewable energy systems for rural communities, work that let him stay home with the girls but didn't pay as much as his old corporate job. I could contribute, said suddenly, to expenses. My pod contains several items that would be valuable to human technology. Shook his head. You don't need to pay rent to live here. Then what do you want from me? The question seemed to puzzle him. Nothing, maybe help with the dishes sometimes. Stared at him. In ethereal society, every interaction was transactional. Every relationship carefully weighed for advantage and status. The idea that someone would offer shelter without expecting anything in return was incomprehensible. I do not understand you, she said finally. A good thing you don't have to understand me to live here. After breakfast, walked her out to examine the crash site. The escape pod sat in its clearing like a silver teardrop, its hull already showing signs of self-repair. Ran her hands over the surface, coaxing hidden panels to open and reveal the pod's modest storage compartments. This is incredible, breathed, watching technology centuries ahead of Earth science respond to her touch. The materials alone. Take whatever you need. Pulled out a device that looked like a crystal wrapped in silver wire. This is a power cell. It will run your house for approximately 50 of your years. I can't accept this. It's too valuable. To whom I have no ship to power, no people to return to. Let it serve some useful purpose. Hefted the power cell, feeling its strange weightlessness. This could revolutionize renewable energy on Earth. Then revolutionize it. Extracted several more items. Tools that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, medical scanners that could diagnose illness before symptoms appeared, communication devices that could reach anywhere in the galaxy. Use them to help people. That seems to be what you do. These are worth nothing to me. I was exiled with basic survival gear, nothing more. She closed the pod's compartments with a finality that spoke of decisions made. I have no use for technology designed for a life I can no longer live. They walked back toward the house in thoughtful silence. His mind was racing with the implications of what she'd given him, not just the personal impact, but what it could mean for humanity's development. Clean energy, advanced medicine, tools that could help solve some of Earth's most pressing problems. Why? He asked finally. Because you gave me something more valuable than technology. What's that? A place to belong. That afternoon, while the girls were at school, and worked together to install the alien power cell in his house's electrical system. She guided him through the process with patience and precision, her technical knowledge complementing his engineering background perfectly. You would have been an excellent engineer, he said, watching her recalibrate the power flow with tools that responded to mental commands. I was trained for military service. Combat specialists do not design, we destroy. Well, what made them think you were suited for that? His hands stilled on the controls. I am strong, faster than pure ethereals, more aggressive. My human heritage makes me unsuited for their more refined occupations. I heard the practiced neutrality in her voice, the careful way she recited criticisms that had clearly been repeated to her many times. Their loss is our gain. You keep saying things like that. Because they're true. He handed her another tool. Anyone can see you're brilliant, capable, kind. If your people couldn't recognize that, they were blind. Or perhaps you are seeing what you wish to see rather than what is. Stopped working and looked at her directly. In the past 18 hours, you've been gracious to my children, helpful without being asked, and generous to the point of giving away technology worth more than this entire planet. If that's not the definition of good character, I don't know what is. She was quiet for a long moment, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing slowly. I have spent my entire life being told I was a mistake, a contamination of pure genetics. It is difficult to believe otherwise. Then take your time. But while you're figuring it out, you're welcome here. When the girls returned from school, they found braiding intricate patterns in Emma's hair while explaining the mathematics of hyperspace navigation. Lily sat entranced, asking questions that grew increasingly complex as adjusted her explanations to match the child's impressive grasp of abstract concepts. "You're good with them," observed, setting down groceries and joining them in the living room. They are exceptional children, curious, intelligent, kind. You have raised them well. I've had good examples to follow. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, found herself settling into the rhythm of family life with surprising ease. She helped Emma with homework that challenged even her advanced education, listened to Lily's elaborate stories about her stuffed dragon's adventures, and debated energy efficiency calculations with while they cooked. It was during these quiet moments that she began to understand what she'd been missing her entire life. Not just acceptance, but the simple joy of being valued for who she was rather than what she could do or how her genetics measured against arbitrary standards. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said as they cleared the dinner dishes. Of course. Are there other people like you out there? I mean, who got kicked out for being different?" Considered the question carefully. Many species are intolerant of variation. Yes, there are others. Oh, that's sad. Oh, yes, it is. Maybe they could come here too. Dad always says there's room for everyone if you're willing to share. The innocent suggestion sent a chill down spine. Emma couldn't know what she was proposing. That Earth could become a refuge for the galaxy's outcasts and misfits. The implications were staggering and potentially dangerous. But as she looked around the warm kitchen, at this family that had welcomed her without question. She wondered if Emma might be right. Maybe there was room for everyone if you were willing to share. That night, as she lay in Emma's bed while the girls shared Lily's room across the hall, stared up at the ceiling and tried to process the day's events. In less than 24 hours, her entire world had shifted. She'd gone from exile to family member, from worthless cast-off to valued friend. It seemed too good to be real, too easy after a lifetime of struggle. But as she listened to moving quietly through the house, checking locks and turning off lights with the practiced care of a devoted father, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found her place in the universe after all. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the forest and her abandoned escape pod in pristine white. Somewhere in the galaxy, her former people continued their lives without her, probably having already forgotten her existence. Here on Earth, in this small cabin filled with warmth and laughter, began to understand what it 3 weeks into her stay on Earth, discovered that human children possessed a remarkable ability to find trouble in the most unexpected places. She learned this when Emma came racing through the front door, tears streaming down her face and Lily close behind. Both girls covered in mud and sporting identical expressions of guilt and defiance. What happened? Looked up from his laptop, where he'd been designing a solar array system with specifications that would have been impossible before Force's arrival. That Tyler said was a freak and that we were freaks for letting her live with us, Emma announced, her small hands clenched into fists. So I pushed him into the creek. Emma Sarah used his father voice, the one that meant trouble. We do not push people into creeks. Oh, but he said mean things. And I said Tyler has the brain of a goldfish and probably smells like one too, Lily added helpfully. That's when his brother Jake showed up, who had been quietly preparing snacks in the kitchen, moved to the living room doorway. Both girls immediately gravitated toward her, as they'd taken to doing whenever they were upset. She knelt to their level, examining their muddy clothes and scraped knees with gentle concern. Are you injured?" Just a little," Emma admitted. "But we won, sorta. Jake is way bigger than us, but he's also really stupid. When he tried to grab Lily, I threw mud in his eyes." That was clever thinking under pressure," said seriously, causing to shoot her a warning look. But perhaps next time you could try solving the conflict with words first. Well, we tried. Tyler said you probably eat bobbies, and that Dad was stupid for trusting you. A flash of something dangerous crossed features before she smoothed her expression back to calm. And what did you tell him? That you're the best at helping with math homework, and you make the most amazing braids, and you tell the coolest bedtime stories about space adventures, Lily said. And that Tyler is just jealous because his mom can't even make good sandwiches. He rubbed his temples. Girls, go get cleaned up. We'll discuss this after you're in dry clothes. As Emma and Lily upstairs turned to, I'm sorry. Small town, small minds. Most people have been curious but accepting, but there are always a few. It is not your fault. Moved to look out the window toward the forest. I knew this would happen eventually. Perhaps it would be better if I left. No, the vehemence of his response surprised them both. Took a breath and continued more calmly. You're not leaving because some ignorant kid said stupid things. It will get worse when more people learn what I am. Then we deal with it together. Joined her at the window. You've become part of this family. The girls adore you. You've revolutionized my work, and... He paused as if catching himself before saying too much. You belong here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That evening, after the girls were in bed, and a long conversation about appropriate responses to bullying, found on the back porch, staring up at stars invisible to human eyes. A penny for your thoughts. I am calculating the distance to she said without looking at him. Trying to determine if my people have noticed my absence yet. Am missing them? No, wondering if they are missing me. They are not, of course. I was an embarrassment they are glad to be rid of. They settled into the chair beside her. Their loss. You keep saying that, but I wonder if you truly understand what it means. Turned to face him, her bioluminescent patterns dim in the darkness. I am not just different, I am dangerous. My hybrid genetics give me strength and speed that could accidentally harm your daughters. My training makes violence my first instinct in threatening situations. My very presence here puts you all at risk. From who? Eventually, someone will come looking. The ethereal collective does not lose track of their military assets, even disgraced ones. And there are other species who would see value in capturing a fallen ethereal or in claiming the technology I carry. Absorbed this information calmly. So we'll be ready for them. How can you be so calm about this? Because worrying about problems that haven't happened yet is a waste of time. He leaned back in his chair, studying her profile against the starlight. Besides, you're not the only one who's dangerous when protecting family. Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. You are a civilian, an engineer. I'm an aerospace engineer who spent 4 years in the Air Force before college. Just because I choose to fix things instead of break them doesn't mean I've forgotten how. I felt something inside her chest that might have been relief or gratitude, or something warmer that she didn't want to examine too closely. You would fight to protect me. I'd fight to protect my family, which includes you. The words hung between them in the cool night air, weighted with meaning that neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Felt the familiar flutter of panic that came whenever someone offered her something she desperately wanted, but had learned not to trust. I should go inside, she said, standing abruptly. Caught her hand as she passed his chair, his touch warm and steady. You don't have to run every time someone cares about you. I do not run. No. Then what do you call changing the subject whenever one of the girls tells you they love you? Or the way you find excuses to leave the room when I try to talk about making this permanent? Like self-preservation, or fear. She pulled her hand free but gently. Perhaps they are the same thing. Over the following weeks, the small drama at the creek blew over as such things do in small towns, helped by the fact that Emma and Lily's teacher, Mrs., was one of the first people to genuinely welcome to the community. The elderly woman had taught 3 generations of local children and possessed an unshakable faith in the power of education to overcome ignorance. She's remarkable with the advanced students, she told during a parent conference. I've never seen anyone explain complex mathematical concepts with such clarity. Emma's standardized test scores have improved dramatically, and she's helping other students in ways I never expected. Loves teaching, said, pride evident in his voice. She's been talking about maybe pursuing formal education credentials. She should. We need more teachers who can inspire students to reach beyond what they think they're capable of. It was true. Had fallen into the role of tutor almost by accident, helping not just Emma and Lily, but several of their classmates whose parents had overcome their initial wariness when they saw their children's improvement. Her patient explanations and genuine enthusiasm for learning made even the most reluctant students eager to tackle challenging problems. "I think I would like to become a teacher," she told one evening as they worked together in his shop, integrating alien technology into renewable energy systems that were already generating interest from major corporations. What's stopping you?" "I have no credentials, no formal education record that your institutions would recognize. And my legal status is complicated." Looked up from the solar cell array he was calibrating. "We can fix the legal stuff. As for credentials, there are programs for people with unconventional backgrounds. You're brilliant, dedicated, and the kids love you. Any school would be lucky to have you." You make it sound simple. The best things usually are." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of the girls thundering down the stairs. Full of excitement about some new project Lily had conceived involving her stuffed dragon, and what appeared to be half the contents of the craft supplies cabinet. We need help with engineering," Lily announced, dragging her favorite toy behind her. "Mr. Sparkles needs wings that actually work." "Wings that actually work require careful attention to aerodynamics," said seriously, earning a grateful look from. "Let us examine the problem systematically." What followed was an hour-long session in applied physics, as helped the to-be home. The galaxy's troubles could wait until morning. He never did. Unconditional acceptance. But as three civilizations converge on Earth, one seeking to reclaim their property, another to exploit humanity's hidden potential, and a third with darker intentions, this unlikely family must prove that humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology or warfare, but the revolutionary concept that every being deserves love, regardless of where they come from or what makes them different. In a universe that values perfection above all else, watch as one human family shows the galaxy what it truly means to be strong.